Hi, second grade teachers. I hope this video finds you well. This week is all about reviewing content we have learned before. Some of it fairly recently, and some of it it's been quite a bit of time. Naming graphing. I feel like it's been forever since we've done graphing, so we did zoom in on this today. This week's lessons look like 2 time lessons, which I did videos for, and there's also independent practices for both of those, and I think a game for the second one. There is a timeline lesson that I did not video. I'm going to tell you why here in just a second. And then there is a graphing lesson. So a couple things I want to make sure I touch base about. Number one, the time is really just reviewing time to every 5 minutes and time to the quarter hour. One thing I did zoom in on is thinking more about that AM and PM, and really talking about the different ways that we can different ways that we can refer to different times. And one of the things I took away from our benchmark the last time was they had things like 5 minutes past or 5 minutes till. So I did talk about that a little bit with some of the problems that we were showing. So those are the first 2 lessons. Then there's a timeline lesson, and I went through our standards and did not really see anything about timelines. But the purpose of having that lesson in our supplementals was because this idea of AM and PM can be really tricky for kids, and so our opportunity to do that in a different way is really awesome. But I didn't feel like me doing a video about that was going to be very helpful. A couple things I want to share with you is you may want to think, as you look carefully at that lesson, one, about making a connection from the clock to a line. I actually had a friend of mine who's another teacher who shared an idea that I want to share with all of you. She took a string and wrapped it around her analog clock and then straightened it out to show like the hours. And just making that connection between this clock and a timeline, and thinking about how we can break apart an hour, we can break apart a day, we can break apart all sorts of different things and stretch it out through a line instead of circular. So that is one thing you might want to think about. Second thing you might want to think about as you look at the timeline is making sure that you have a mark for your noon time and making sure that you have a mark for your midnight time, but maybe that you have arrows at the end to show that time doesn't stop, kind of like a number line would, right? And so that might be an option. So be really thoughtful about how you draw your simple timeline and having kids plot different times and events throughout the day. Now, I will share with you that I have put some things on Canvas, even if I didn't do the videos. I was actually going to do a video for it, and then I decided against it because I felt like you guys might be able to be more creative. But in the lesson, they have times throughout the day that they have to plot. So I've just put some pictures and the analog clocks that match that time. Nothing fancy schmancy. Use if you choose. You don't have to. But I did feel like being able to plot those events throughout the day might be kind of fun to do that, and it'd be something that you post. I would also recommend that you take your schedule of the day, or you have your kids that are virtual make up a schedule of the day about the things that they do and the times that they do them, and map them out on that timeline so that they can see how their day is and where those things land, and then zoom in on that idea of this happens in the AM and this happens in the PM. So I would just recommend taking some time to look carefully at that timeline activity. I want to make sure that the videos I did this week were really zooming in and purposeful, and I felt like that one wasn't as important as some of the other ones were. Second thing I wanted to share with you about the videos is that I ended up doing this graphing lesson because, one, it's been a long time since we've done graphing, and 2, because I feel like there is some misunderstandings about data and what do we do when we're given this guy that's all sorts of mixed up, and we have to organize it. And so I really wanted to do some direct instruction with that and really have that conversation and really pull out, when we have this kind of data, we have to organize it before we can represent it. And then once we represent it, then we can really interpret it. So really those steps: organizing, representing, and then being able to interpret that. And so that's why I kind of showed and modeled how we take it from this to put it into our tally chart, and then how we can make sure that all of those pieces go together before they go off and they collect that data on their own. This lesson I felt like this was not part of that lesson, but I felt like it was really important and would be helpful to give kids that little bit of oomph before they go off and they collect that data on their own, so they really know what to do when they put it into practice. So those are just some things I did with the videos this week. If you have any questions, let me know. I will try to put up as many of these pieces as possible on the Canvas course. I will put up the unorganized data, so if you want to do that in your classroom, you're more than welcome to. And I'll put up the timeline pieces and then the clocks that I printed and used on my charts. Hopefully that is helpful to you. And again, I just want to remind everybody, we're getting towards the end of the year. I know that it's easy to kind of get into some more fun things, but our kiddos really need us to really zoom in and focus on these standards and this content to prepare them the best they possibly can be for third grade. And I know you all are doing fantastic things in your classroom. So I hope you're having a great week. Hope you have a great week next week. And I look forward to seeing you soon. Talk to you soon.